50%. In a room with real cash on the table, half the people offered a genuine, unconditional sum of money will refuse it, guaranteeing that they walk away with nothing, and guaranteeing the stranger across from them walks away with nothing too. Not because the money was fake, not because they misunderstood the rules, because the number felt like an insult, and they were willing to pay to say so. To understand why that number is disturbing, you have to understand what it was supposed to be. Before 1982, economics rested on a clean and elegant assumption. The human being was a rational actor. Economists called this creature Homo economicus, a hypothetical person who, when handed a choice between some money and no money, would always choose some money. It didn't matter how the split was framed, how insulting the proposal, how lopsided the division of a shared pot. $2 is mathematically superior to $0. A rational agent takes the $2. Full stop. This assumption wasn't a minor footnote. It was load-bearing. Entire branches of economic modeling, market theory, and game theory were constructed on the premise that when self-interest and logic point in the same direction, people follow them. Economists trusted this the way physicists trust gravity. Then 3 researchers in West Germany, Werner Guth, Rolf Schmidberger, and Bernd Schwarzer, sat people down in pairs and broke it. They called it the Ultimatum Game, and its architecture was almost insultingly simple. 2 strangers, 1 sum of money. Real currency, not hypothetical points on a worksheet. 1 person, the proposer, decides how to split it. The other person, the responder, has exactly 1 power. Accept the split, and both people keep their share as proposed, or reject it, and the money evaporates for both of them. No negotiation, no counteroffer. 1 shot. Classical theory made a precise, testable prediction here. Proposers should offer the smallest possible amount above 0, and responders should accept it, because a single unit of currency is still more than nothing. That's the whole model in 1 sentence. That is not what happened. Offers hovering around the 50-50 mark were accepted almost universally. No surprise there. But as the split grew lopsided, something began firing in the responders that had nothing to do with arithmetic. Offers where the proposer kept around 70 to 80% and offered only 20 to 30% to the other person were rejected at strikingly high rates, often 40 to 50% of the time, depending on the population and stake size. No, and this wasn't a quirk of 1 German university lab in 1982. The finding replicated across decades, across dozens of countries, across wildly different economies, from small-scale societies with little market exposure to post-industrial cities, from stakes worth a few dollars to stakes worth a full month's wage in the local economy. Raise the amount of money on the table and rejection rates barely move. People were not just declining a bad deal, they were destroying value to punish the person who offered it to them. But the strangest part didn't come from the behavioral data at all. It came decades later when researchers put responders inside functional MRI scanners and had them play the same game while their brains were being watched in real time. Unfair offers didn't just produce a thought, they produced a spike of activation in the anterior insula, a region also associated with physical disgust, with pain, with the visceral recoil from something rotten or threatening. And critically, this activation appeared before measurable activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for deliberate, weighed reasoning. The body registered the insult as a threat before the mind had finished calculating that $2 beats $0. This happens more often than people realize, and most of them never catch it firing in real time. Subscribe if you want to start noticing the mechanism before it makes the decision for you. So why does a brain do this? Why build a circuit that actively overrides its own material self-interest? The answer is not that the responders were being irrational. They were running a different calculation entirely and running it with total efficiency. The prefrontal cortex was quietly computing short-term payoff, some money now, but the insula was computing something else. Long-term position within a social hierarchy and the cost of being perceived even once as an easy target. In the small, tightly interdependent groups our species evolved inside, reputation was not a soft social nicety. It was survival infrastructure. If you accepted exploitation once without resistance, you signaled to everyone watching that you could be exploited again and again indefinitely at lower and lower cost to the exploiter. Rejecting an unfair offer, even at direct personal cost, functioned as a public, unambiguous deterrent. It said, "This will cost you something if you try it." That is not a bug in the decision-making machinery. That is the machinery doing exactly what it was built to do, just not in the environment it was built for, and the sequencing matters more than the outcome. The insula reacts to unfairness in a time frame measured in milliseconds, faster than conscious deliberation can even begin assembling an argument for accepting the money. By the time the prefrontal cortex arrives with its calm, reasonable case for something is better than nothing, the emotional verdict has frequently already been rendered. The reasoning mind isn't deciding, it's narrating a decision that was made somewhere else, faster, without its permission. This circuit does not stay inside a laboratory. It runs in the unemployment office when a candidate needing income badly rejects a lowball counteroffer that would have covered rent because something about the number felt like a statement about their worth rather than a business calculation. It runs in the conference room when a founder walks away from a deal that still would have generated a profit because the other party's tone during negotiation felt dismissive and no amount of remaining margin could undo that feeling. It runs at customer service counters when a refund or accommodation is offered in a voice laced with condescension and the customer refuses the very resolution they came in demanding simply to avoid accepting it on those terms. It runs in salary negotiations that escalate well past the point of financial logic, where backing down would save nothing and cost nothing on paper, but registers internally as a loss of standing rather than a rounding error. The downstream cost of this circuit is rarely dramatic. It is cumulative. It is the sum of countless individually small transactions, deals not closed, discounts not taken, settlements not signed, each one abandoned not because the numbers were wrong, but because the feeling attached to the numbers was intolerable. Across a working lifetime, this adds up to a measurable, quiet tax on lifetime earnings, paid in installments too small to notice individually. Business partnerships dissolve not over the actual clauses in the contract, but over the sensation in one meeting of being undervalued. Careers pivot on a single conversation that felt like disrespect, rather than on any spreadsheet. An ancient circuit calibrated for survival in bands of perhaps a few dozen people who all knew each other's names, now quietly steers decisions inside a global market economy built from strangers, algorithms, and abstractions it was never designed to pass. And here is where the mechanism becomes difficult to observe from the outside, because it is currently running in you. You have just received an offer. An explanation, several minutes of information, a small transfer of understanding in exchange for your attention, which is itself a currency you cannot get back once spent. Somewhere underneath conscious awareness, a valuation is already running on whether that exchange was fair. Notice whether there's any resistance to the idea sitting just beneath this sentence. The idea that you, specifically, are not the exception to any of this. The circuit doesn't announce itself. It just fires and waits to see what you'll call the decision afterward.